Sahana bhavatu sahanau punaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Last time we started the second portion of the book Vedanta Treatise. For those who are new, this is the book we are studying, Vedanta Treatise. We started the second part. This part, this chapter, talks about the human being, talks about our composition. For those who are doing the foundation course, this is a further explanation on the first chapter, first class that we did over there. For those who want to know where that basic human composition came from, it came from this chapter. So this chapter is actually your reference reading for the first class of the foundation course. For those who don't know, the foundation course gives the complete basics of Vedanta. And this is reference reading for the first class of that course. We started human composition. We started studying the basic constitution. And we started first with the most important idea of Vedanta. An unknown idea as of now, but still this is going to be the conclusion. So you might as well know in the beginning what we're going to conclude with. We are going to conclude with, therefore, what is the mission of human existence? That's therefore, when we study everything, we'll know. But he's telling us what he's going to tell us in the end. What is the mission of human existence? The mission of every human being is to discover the Supreme Self. How do you know that this is the mission? Everybody is in pursuit of something. And no matter what they get, they continue to be in pursuit of something. So throughout history, we don't find anyone who says, well, I've got everything. Very, very rare people in this world who believe so, that they've got everything. Everybody has a remnant desire. Even if you're mostly okay, you still have a remnant desire that something did not happen, that something should happen. This is true for everybody across every socio-economic category. No matter where you are, there's always a remnant desire. So throughout history, if we were to look at human beings and say, was there anybody who had no remnant desire? And when we look through history, we look through people, we find only one category of person who even claimed it. We don't know whether they told us the truth. But only one category of people have even claimed to have found that sonum bonum, to have found that ultimate purpose. Only one category. Everybody else told us of their dissatisfaction, of their remnant desires, of what should have been, or what could have been, or what should be in the future. One category, and one category alone, had no such deal. And that category are the self-realized masters. A Buddha, a Christ, a Krishna, a Rama, a Muhammad, a Mahavira, all these great initiators of religion or religions, they told us that they are happy, they are fulfilled, they have nothing more to do. Religions were made around them, they didn't make them. In fact, Ramatirtha, the great Ramatirtha was asked, don't you want to build up an institution? He said, all institutions are my institutions. They had nothing. So everybody finds something to be done. Only one category of persons across history do we find who claim, okay, that is their claim, that they are completely happy. They represent what is spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita as apuryamanam achala pratishtam. Like the rivers can flow endlessly, millions and millions of gallons of water flow into the ocean, but the ocean stays ever the same. So too is a Buddha or a Christ or a Krishna. No matter what happens to them, they stay ever the same. Their happiness is not impeded by what happens or what doesn't happen. So from this we can say that at least since they at least claim it, the rest don't even bother to make this claim. But since they claim it, then probably they have achieved the purpose. And what is the purpose according to them? They have described it in various ways. They call it the merger with God, achievement of enlightenment, shunyata, whatever they call it, it boils down to one thing, which is the discovery of the Supreme Self. Same thing, different words. Same concept. So the mission of every human being, therefore, we conclude, is to find that, whatever it is they found. Now, to realize the eternal being, you need to study your constitution. What is eternal in you? If you need to find out, then you need to understand what is your constitution to begin with. And how does it all work together? So we studied that last time. What is life? It is what happens when life happens when
We have experiences.
And subject and
Eva,
Prakriti plus Purusha.
When spirit meets matter.
when spirit meets matter. Meera, don't go there. What did you say, Tinky?
Prakriti plus Purusha.
Yeah, okay, but please do the text we're currently doing. Talk, you're right. But use the text we're currently using.
Spirit and matter.
Spirit and matter. So, you know, what you're saying is correct. But if you don't keep to the language that is currently used, then anyone who's not attending that class will get totally confused. Okay, so in any class, we keep to the language of that class for everybody. And you know why we do that? Who can tell me why we do that?
So there's no ambiguity.
Yes, to avoid the fallacy of, you're right, to avoid, so that there's no ambiguity. Else we may commit unconsciously the fallacy of
Misapprehension.
no. Fallacy of, which fallacy? Aren't you in Thursday class?
Undefined term.
Yes, the fallacy of equivocation. Using the same word to mean two different things. Is anybody new in this class today? Anyone new in the class today? Let me check any unknown names.
I am new here, Rakesh.
Can you tell me who you are? I can't see who is. Is that Rakesh?
Yeah,
Is that, yeah, okay, so you're new. Okay. All right. Okay, welcome to the class, Rakesh. Anyone else is new? Is this your first class here, Rakesh, or ever? This is your first Vedanta class, or is it your first class in these classes?
My first class with all of you, but I've read a lot of books for the last 1 year, so I'm very comfortable in what I'm hearing, so it is making sense to me. I'm able to relate to it.
Hear you very well. This is your first class here, right? Is that what I heard you? And then you've read before books. Is that correct?
Because I've read a lot, so I can relate to whatever you're saying.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so the mission of human existence is the realization of the self. How do we know that it is so? Only those people who have realized the self have sought nothing else. Everybody else has sought something else. So therefore, we know that that must be the mission. Now, how do we understand how to get there? What are we supposed to do? We have to begin by understanding our whole constitution. And by understanding our constitution, hopefully we will find that self that we're talking about. At the moment, self to us is like X. What is this X? What is the supreme self? Where is it? What do you mean self? So let us understand what is our constitution. So the widest classification is to classify it as spirit and matter. What is spirit? Spirit is that unknown self. What is matter? It is the body, mind, intellect. When spirit and matter come together, what we have is life. Means a living being. When I say life, Meera, I don't mean life as in an Anubhavadhara, but life as a living being. We have a living being. How do we have a living being? Because the self and material equipment come together. The self, that unknown X, whatever you want to call it, God, self, Brahman, Atman, Vishnu, Shiva, Allah, Father in heaven, whatever you call it, that spirit and the matter. What is the matter? Matter is our body, mind, and intellect. Our body, mind, and intellect is the matter, and the self is the spirit, the divine spark, whatever in the world you want to call this thing. So we are composed, broadly speaking, a broad classification is two things, spirit and matter. When these two meet, you have a scintillating expression of life. Just as when bulb and electricity meet, you have a scintillating expression of light, L-I-G-H-T. When spirit and matter meet, what do you get?
Life.
You get life. How do we understand this? When you see a bulb by itself does not have light, right? You just hold a bulb in your hand, there's no light. Electricity has no light. Wherever there's electricity, there isn't light, right? If you put on the fan, you won't get light. There is electricity, but you won't get light. So electricity has no light. Bulb has no light. But when these two meet, when they combine, when they connect, what we get is light. Similarly, matter has no life. The body, mind, intellect are not alive. They have no life. The self also is not alive. It doesn't have life. But when the two meet, when the body, mind, intellect, and the self meet, what you get is a living being. Maybe I shouldn't say life, I should say living being, then it becomes clearer. A living being is made of self plus matter. Self is the divine spark. Matter is the body, mind, and intellect. Yahan sab theek hai? All clear up to this point? Okay. Then we'll study what we studied yesterday. We did this paragraph. Okay. Who's reading the next paragraph? Now, you know, matter consists of body, mind, intellect. Body consists of the organs of perception and action. We did that just yesterday, right? The body, how did you all? I mean, I'm just assuming that most people in this class are from yesterday's class. I hope I'm making a good assumption. Many names are looking the same. The body consists of two things, The organs of perception, the organs of action, the organs of perception take in stimuli from the external world. This stimuli that you get reacts with your mind and intellect, and then the body acts out through its organs of action again in the world. For instance, Rakesh has come to a class today. His organ of hearing and of seeing, that means his eyes and his ears, are hearing and listening to this class. What is he listening to? He's listening to a sound. And he's seeing color and form. This information that has been taken in by his senses reaches his mind and intellect. And when it reaches his mind and intellect, he has a reaction. He will say, good lecture, bad lecture, useful lecture, not useful lecture. Some reaction will take place. Based on whatever reaction takes place, he will perform an action. If he thinks it's a boring lecture, then he will just go off and have a sandwich and go get himself a Coke. I don't know, whatever he does. Or if he thinks it's a good lecture, then he will take interest, maybe write down notes. But whatever it is, the organs of action will start doing something based on what went on in his mind. Right? Similarly, when your eyes see the color and form of a gulab jamun, a reaction takes place in your mind and intellect. The mind says, oh, gulab jamun, I want it, I want it, I want it. Intellect is either asleep or gives permission, one of the two. And then your organs of actions will act accordingly. Clear? Or you don't like gulab jamun, so then your organs of action will walk away and look for something else to eat. Okay, is that clear? So this is the base. So, just being clear about the base. Now, let's see. Who will read the next paragraph? So what we do in, thank you, Kinnari. What we do in the class, Rakesh, is somebody reads the paragraph and summarizes it. Go ahead, Kinnari.
Whatever be the activities of the body, mind, and intellect, the self is the life principle enlivening them all. That is said to be Atman, God, the supreme power which vitalizes your body to act and perceive, your mind to feel, and your intellect to think. Without the presence of the self, these equipments remain inert as a mass of matter. So, summarizing this paragraph, the self is the enlivening principle, vitalizes the body to act and perceive, the mind to feel, and the intellect to think. Without the presence of the self, these equipments are just mere mass of matter.
Kinnari, you have to summarize. You can't say the whole paragraph, right?
I
summarize.
To shorten it because, okay, so basically the self is the enlivening principle.
Very good.
Of the body, mind, and intellect.
Very good. So the self enlivens the body, mind, and intellect. He just told us what the self is. He told us what the matter equipments are. He's explained that. And now he's telling us that the reason they work at all is because of the self. It's like, imagine there's a village. And in that village, suddenly electricity has come. And then everybody gets some fan and light, and maybe their washing machine starts, and they're all very excited. Oh, we have fan, we have light, we have a washing machine, we have a oven. They're all very excited. They're using all these equipments, but nobody is taking cognizance of the fact that there is something enlivening those equipments. This is what is happening in our life. We're very excited about what our body is doing, what our mind is doing, what our intellect is doing, all what we are perceiving, all what we're doing, all that we are feeling, all that we are thinking. Our entire attention is there. And we have forgotten that there has to be an enlivening principle. How are all these gadgets working? What is making them work? In the Kena Upanishad, In the third chapter, this story is given. It's a childish story if you look at it. Except that remember that now you're reading the Upanishads. It is supposed to be the highest philosophy known to mankind. And here is the story that the devas, the gods in the heavens, they won a war, and they were rejoicing because they won the war, and they forgot what made them win the war. They forgot about Brahman, and they were having a great time. They were opening their bottles of champagne and whatever it is the gods do when they are celebrating. But they were merrily celebrating, and they forgot about Brahman. And they looked up in the sky. I don't know where they were, but they looked up and they saw an adorable form, adorable yaksha. And they looked up and they said, "Who is this? Somebody's great crashing our party. Who is this? Who is this adorable form? Who is this yaksha?" So the story goes that Indra, not knowing who was the adorable form, sent Vayu. And Vayu went to the yaksha and said, "Who are you? Why are you crashing into our party?" So the adorable form said, "Who are you?" He said, "I am Vayu." "And what does one such as you do?" asked the yaksha. And Vayu said, "I can blow away the whole world." And the yaksha said, "Oh, that's interesting. So happy to meet you. Can you blow this little straw?" And the Vayu said, "This guy is mad. He doesn't understand Vayu." So he did, "Phoo." And the straw didn't move. So he applied a little more ferrous. Phoo, he did. Vayu. Vayu means, you know what that means, huh? Lord of the winds. The straw didn't move. And then he gave his full force. Imagine, full force of Vayu. You can imagine, that's a tornado. And the straw didn't move. Vayu said, "What on earth?" And he ran back to Indra and said, "I'm sorry, I cannot tell who this person is." So Indra said, "Vayu, can't tell?" And he says, "Okay, Agni, you go. Find out who is that adorable form." And Agni then trots up and says, "Okay, who are you?" And the yaksha says, "Who may be you?" So then he says, "I am Agni." And he says, "What may one such as you do?" So Agni says, "I can burn the whole world." And then the yaksha says, "Can you burn the straw?" Agni said, "What a madman this is. He's asking Agni whether he can burn a straw. He throws a little fire on it. Straw doesn't burn. What's that? So more power it gives. Straw doesn't burn. And he gets full power. Straw doesn't burn. So he also runs away from there. What is this strange thing, Agni? All my power and I could not burn a straw? He goes back to Indra and says, "I could not find out who that adorable form is." So Indra is like very confused. What is this? Vayu and Agni cannot tell? What does that even mean? And the chapter ends. Then Indra goes there. Sorry, the chapter later. Then Indra goes there. He says, "Who are you, O adorable form?" And as soon as Indra asks the question, the form disappears and the chapter ends. This is like, like a child story. What is going on? This is Upanishad, right? Upanishad is the highest philosophy known to mankind, the most sacred text. What is going on over here? And then the text begins, next chapter. Says, where that adorable form stood, there was Uma, Haimavati, the daughter of the Himalayas. She was standing there. So Indra could not meet the yaksha, right? And so he asked Haimavati because she was now there. Uma or Parvati, whatever you want to call her. Who was that adorable form? And she says, that was Brahman. This is the story. Now you can't understand what it is supposed to mean. But if you think about it, it's exactly what we're talking about now. We get involved in our celebrations or our sorrow. We get involved in the perceptions and actions of the body, in the emotions of the mind, in the thinking of the intellect, and we forget that there is something else that enables all this to happen. We don't even think about it. What? My body works, my mind works, my intellect works. We can see this. We do not know what makes it work. So that's what it means. That's what the story means. So what does it mean? It says Vayu. Vayu represents the organs of senses. In other words, you cannot find out God through your senses. You cannot understand what is that reality by using the organs of perception. Meaning you can't see it, hear it, taste it, smell it, touch it. You can't do that. Some people will tell you, I had breakfast with God. Now you can know that that's not possible. Whoever you had breakfast with, it could not be God, because God cannot be seen. God cannot be heard. God cannot be felt, cannot be touched, cannot be smelt. Say the Upanishads, Tadeva Brahmatvam Vidhi Nedam Yadidam Upasate. That alone is Brahman, not what you people worship here. If you see it, it is not Brahman. If you hear it, it is not Brahman. If you smell it, taste it, touch it, it is not Brahman. Your senses cannot know what it is. Then can you find it out through action, through karma kanda, through rituals, through service, through volunteer work? Can you find it through that? Agni represents action. Selfish action, unselfish action, any type of action. Can you find it through that? No. Agni could not find out what that adorable yaksha was. So two aspects. Without the yaksha's power, Vayu could not work. And Vayu could not understand the yaksha. Those are the two things you have to know in this story. When the yaksha decides to switch off, when electricity decides to switch off, the light cannot come on. It's that simple. So the yaksha saying, burn this straw, telling Vayu, blow this straw. But he's not enlivening Vayu, so all the power he's putting, nope, nothing is coming out. He's putting on the switch, but no light is coming because there's no electricity. So, senses cannot know Brahman, and senses cannot operate without Brahman. Second one, Agni. Actions cannot know a Brahman, and without Brahman, you can't perform action. In other words, the enlivening spirit. Correct? Then Indra. Indra, what is Indra? Indra represents the mind. Indrayani Raja iti Indra. Who is Indra? How is he defined? Indrayani Raja. Indrayani means your senses. He is the Raja of the Indras. Raja of your senses. Who is the king of your senses? Your mind. Why is your mind the king of your senses? You did it only yesterday. So all those who were there yesterday, why is the mind the king of the senses?
Perception is registered only when in the presence of the mind.
Very good. How will you know? The mind is not available. What will the sense organs do? For all those people who are in class but are thinking of something else, the sound is going through their ears, but they don't know what happened. Indrayani Raja iti Indra. Indra is the king of the Indriyas. So that means your mind. Indra represents the mind. So the mind represents mind and intellect, your thoughts. Your thoughts go to find Brahman, and it cannot find it either. Then how will your thoughts understand Brahman? Through the knowledge of Vedanta. The knowledge of Vedanta is represented by Haimavati. Haimavati, the daughter of the Himalayas. That's what the word means. So who is the daughter of the Himalayas? The knowledge which was born in the Himalayas. So your thoughts can use this knowledge to understand that ultimate truth. Not because this knowledge will tell you something, But this knowledge will enable you to remove all the ignorance. You cannot learn it directly through knowledge. Otherwise, she would have told him. Otherwise, she would, he would have seen. No, their thoughts cannot see Brahman. But what can you do? You can remove all the ignorance with this knowledge. So, the moral of this long story is, without Brahman, your senses, your mind, your intellect cannot function. Not only that, your senses, your mind, your intellect cannot know. That is not there in the text. I am just adding it because it was part of the story. I hope that is clear. Without Brahman, your body, mind, intellect cannot function. Your body, mind, intellect, yours meaning anybody's, yours, mine, anybody's, cannot know. All clear so far? Any problems up to this point? Have you all been listening carefully? Or all gone to sleep? All clear up to this point? Momita, you're clear up to this point? Okay,
Yes,
very
ma'am.
good. Very good. Please put on.
Janki ji, you said Uma represents knowledge?
That's right. Except I didn't say Uma, I said Haimavati, because this is a very interesting thing in our culture, is that every word is used for something. Haimavati means daughter of the Himalayas, so that really represents the knowledge, because these great rishis who wrote the knowledge wrote it in the Himalayas. So therefore Haimavati represents the knowledge. Uma represents something quite different. Uma represents, Ma in Sanskrit represents not or don't. Ma kuru dhana jana, you've come across it. Ma kuru dhana jana yauvana garvam. You come across all these uses. So ma means don't, do not, not. That's what it means. It's negation. U means like ooh, as in pain. So Uma is the name given to Parvati by her mother when she was doing tapas to obtain Shiva. As you know, she was a very beautiful princess, and she tried to obtain Shiva through her good looks and beauty, and she failed at that. So she decided to obtain him through tapas. And she did such ghor tapas, such horrible tapas, that her beautiful form was reduced to skin and bones. She did terrible tapas because she was single-pointedly devoted to obtaining the Lord as her husband. Seeing that ghor tapas that she did, her mother felt a lot of pain and therefore said, "Ooh, Ma, oh, don't do it, don't do so much." Just as when you will try to find your beloved, the Lord, you will try to marry him, means you will try to become one with him. You will undertake many things which to the world will seem, my God, don't do that. Especially those who love you. They'll say, "Oh, Ma, don't do it, it's too much." You will have no option but to do it, but your loved ones will feel sorry for you. And just representative of the dedication to self-realization. Okay, Jyoti. So listen carefully. Not Uma, but Haimavati, who is the daughter, who is represented as the knowledge is represented as the child of the Himalayas, as the daughter of the Himalayas. The word Parvati also works because Parvati means the daughter of the mountains. The word Parvati also works in this context. Okay, clear? All right, so everybody is clear, I think, up to this point. Yagu, okay, good. Everyone's clear. Rakesh, you're okay since you're new.
Yes, all good. Thank you very much.
Okay, then let's proceed. So far, so good then. Now let's go forward. Who will read this?
I will read.
Please do.
However, the skeptic questions the authenticity of the existence of the supreme power. He refuses to accept anything beyond the perceptible terrestrial world because of inadequacy of thinking material required for conceiving the transcendent, and dismisses the concept of a transcendental being as a fanatic being of a person without reason backing it. Ironically, there are many aspects of the world that the skeptic themselves believe except without reason. The most rational, even scientists would find it difficult to live in a world without assumptions and beliefs. In truth, it would be practically impossible to go by reason proof at every turn of life. How do you know that you are the son of your parents? When you go for a meal to a restaurant, how do you know the food is not contaminated? When you hire a cab, how do you know the driver is sane? There are numerous other questions that remain unanswered in your mind. You perhaps would prima facie dismiss these thoughts as absurd, ridiculous, yet you go through these experiences by mere assumptions, beliefs. The skeptic does not accept the existence of the supreme power, as the skeptic is not able to visualize beyond what is perceptible. The skeptic does not accept the concept of a transcendental being because of the perceived lack of proof and evidence. Yet the skeptic accepts various aspects in daily life without proof. For example, how do we know who our parents are? How do we know whether the food in the restaurant is not contaminated? We dismiss these thoughts as ridiculous, yet go on living these experiences based purely on our assumptions.
Good. So many people say, oh, God is just your assumption, to which Vedanta responds and says, your whole life is an assumption. Everything you're dealing with is an assumption. 99% of everything is an assumption. Right? Isn't that true? Everything. Even whether you are the child of your parents. Maybe even whether your brothers and sisters are your brothers and sisters. I mean, like everything. If you buy cabbage from the market, I don't know if you saw that video. They keep sending all these videos. I have no idea whether they're true or not, but they showed how these people create cabbage out of plastic and sell it to you. It seemed a bit odd to me because I'm sure creating cabbage out of plastic would probably be more expensive than creating cabbage out of ground, but whatever. If they claim that it is so. The thing is, when you're eating that cabbage, how on earth would you even know whether it was plastic or whether it was actually a grown thing? So, at every stage of life, we are making assumptions. Making assumptions means we live on beliefs all the time. We live on the belief that this building that we are in is not going to just collapse on our head this moment. So everything is an assumption. Why do you criticize this based on the fact that it is an assumption? It is a blind faith. Why do you criticize it based on that? That's the first point. Now, you can argue, and you should argue, that no, I don't believe all these things just on an assumption. There is good reason for me to believe that. So that's what he's saying in the next paragraph. Who will read the next paragraph?
I'll read.
Please.
However, these beliefs and assumptions are not baseless. They are supported by several corroboratory evidences which stand to reason. Hence, they are not blind beliefs. Likewise, the introduction of Supreme Self as the transcendental power, the Godhead vitalizing the material equipments into living being, is not a groundless belief. A careful analysis of life's experience would provide you enough reason to substantiate the belief. Shall I continue?
No, just summarize here.
Yeah, so all the assumptions and beliefs which we are following they are not baseless. There is some reason which we have to accept those. So every experience we have is like it is having some reason, and we are like to some extent we are convinced that this is the belief behind that experience.
True. They are not blindless beliefs, whatever. Now, like for instance, you have not done a DNA test on your parents and yourself to know whether they really are your parents. Then why do you believe they are your parents? Is it just an assumption? It's not. That's corroboratory evidence, isn't it? They've looked after you all along, whatever. They have cried in your pains. They have rejoiced in your joys. They have been with you all along. Corroboratory evidence. Why do you believe that the roof of this building is not going to fall on your head? You have corroboratory evidence. You know that you know that it was built by a proper architect. You know that human beings know how to build buildings. There's a huge lot of things. When you sit in an airplane, how do you know it's going to fly? You have corroboratory evidence. So even though all the time we are making these assumptions are not blind faith, because you have plenty of corroboratory evidence. So corroboratory evidence means supporting evidence. Supporting evidence means that sometimes you don't have direct proof of something, but you have plenty of reasons around it showing that this is most likely true. Most likely true. And therefore, these assumptions, in most cases, would not be false. This is a form of inductive logic. Okay, so is this point clear? That first point we need to understand clearly is our whole life is based on some belief or the other, right? Now, these beliefs are not necessarily false. We have many false beliefs. How do we know they are false beliefs? They don't have any corroboratory evidence. Then they are blind. But there are, whatever you're doing in life, normally, you're drinking soup. Okay, somebody gives you something and calls it soup. We go to Usha Sukumaran's house. She says, here's a soup. And we drink it. Why do we drink it? We don't say, oh my God, how do I know it's soup? Because we have corroboratory evidence. She has invited us to her house. She has no reason to dislike us. She has in fact invited us with great love and affection. Now she claims this is soup. We accept it as soup. So it is corroboratory evidence. So even though we have no direct proof that this is soup when we are offered it, we have corroboratory evidence. Our hostess is giving us this thing and calling it soup. Please have some soup. So it's okay, must be soup, right? Until you've seen it or tasted it, in which case you will know what it is. But she could be giving you just water in a nice bowl and saying, "Here, soup." Right? But you don't think like that. You don't say, "Okay, let me check whether this is really soup." You don't say all that. You accept it based on corroboratory evidence. That means supporting evidence. Similarly, in the case of understanding about whether there is God or not, you will get no proof. Why will you get no proof in the understanding of God?
It's unmanifest.
Okay, but can you put it in today's class language?
Lack of
Your
thinking material.
senses, mind, intellect cannot see, feel, think.
No, there is a corroboratory evidences.
No,
We can't know God through either action or through our senses.
yes, or emotions or thought. Very good. So yes, Kalyan Kumar, you're right. So there can never be proof of the existence of God. Please get that 100% clear. There can never be proof. What is proof? Something that tells you 100% that this thing is there. The moment you get proof of God, you have to know that this proof is incorrect because
you're getting it through your senses.
Very good. Yes, senses or proof is basically to do with your intellect. Correct? Now, if you say I have proof, that means your intellect has established something. But your intellect is incapable of knowing the Lord. So why are you even going in that direction? It is not possible to prove. Please be 100% sure about this. Because otherwise we'll get into a discussion about whether something is proof or not proof. Nothing is proof. Nobody can prove. Okay? Anybody who claims to prove it is making a philosophical error, because if you take proof to be something that you can see with your senses, then God cannot be seen with your senses. If you take a proof to be something which you can intellectually analyze and prove, then your intellect cannot understand it. It cannot be proved, whichever way you wish to define the word proof. Okay? Then how can we accept it? Then if you know it cannot be proved, how on earth can you accept it? Because of corroboratory evidence. Because there is so much supporting evidence that it makes us pause and ask the question, can all of it taken together mean nothing? How is that even possible? So let us see what is the corroboratory evidence available to us for us to even conceive that there may be something beyond the body mind. How will we even conceive it? On what grounds will we even take it as a working hypothesis? Why would we do that? Why would we even posit such a thing? Because there is plenty of corroboratory evidence which we are now going to study about. Is it clear up to this point? The 2 points we all have to know is that A, God cannot be proved. Why cannot God be proved? Please don't do this to me. Why cannot God be proved?
Because it's not perceiving to the senses.
Correct. Continue.
Or the mind, or actions, or emotions.
Go in order. It cannot be perceived by the senses, acted upon by the organs of action, felt by the mind, or thought by the intellect. If you can't do these things with it, how on earth can you prove it? It's not philosophically possible to prove. Many people have given proofs. There are many proofs available. However, by definition, it is wrong. Momita, what about the proof from mystics and God realized? They claim to have realized God. This is also corroboratory evidence because we respect these saints and know that they tell the truth. What about the proof from the mystics and the God realized? They claim, it is their claim. We have to investigate that. Is this because of corroboratory evidence? No. You may believe them for other reasons. Do you come, Momita, to the Thursday class?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so we will study this whole thing on why would we take their word under the topic authorities. It comes under Shabda Pramana, which is understanding whether somebody is an authority. Because if somebody is an authority according to us, then we take their word for it. And that therefore the corroboratory evidence available to us is the fact that we believe that they are an authority, and therefore we have to test our belief that they are an authority. We will be studying this on Thursdays, so I'm not going into it. I really should know who comes to which class, because I don't know whether I'm talking in the air sometimes. Some people who don't come to some other class may have no idea what we're talking about. If that happens, because it's difficult, to keep track of which class who's going to, please ask the question if something is not clear. Okay, so it would come under a Shabda Pramana, which is authorities. But so far so good, everyone. Number 1 point, God cannot be proved. Number 2 point, we have corroboratory evidence. And now we're going to start studying the corroboratory evidence. Any problems up to this point? All good? Come on, react. Say yes. Give me a thumbs up. Show me that you were there.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheetal. Let's see who else is Okay, Varsha, Arun, Anita. Okay, very good. Thank you. It's nice sometimes to know that there are people listening. Otherwise, I am just talking. Who knows whether, thank you, anyone is listening or not. All right, so let's start. Corroboratory evidence. Who will read the next paragraph?
Shall I read?
Yes, please do.
However, these beliefs and assumptions are not totally baseless. They are supported
Read
by
the next paragraph.
Next
paragraph.
Oh, sorry. Okay, you refer to your equipments as my body, my mind, and my intellect. The use of the possessive pronoun my indicates that there are two factors, the possessor and the possessed. The possessor is you, and the possessed, the body, mind, intellect. The equipments are therefore your possessions, they belong to you. If this be so, then who are you? Take away the body, mind, and intellect from your personality, there seems nothing left. Yet you feel a subject integrating them and claiming these objects as its possessions. That unknown subject has been designated as Atman, the self within. So the equipments we use to function the body, mind, and intellect are mine. So that there is the person who possesses them, and these are the possessions. The possessor and possessed cannot be the same. So if we remove the possessions, then who is left? And that who that is left has been called Atman.
Very good. So the first corroboratory evidence is a language we all use. We say my body, my mind, my intellect. If you're saying my car, there is a you and there is a car. My house, there is a me and there is a car. My spouse, there is a me and there is my spouse. There is a me and my child. So there is always, whenever we refer to our equipments, a possessor-possessed relationship. If there is a possessor-possessed relationship, doesn't it mean that there are two things involved? There is a me, which you instinctively say, this is mine. When you say this is mine, there is an I who owns that thing. When you say this is my body, who is that person owning this body? It's the mind. But you also say my mind. Then who is owning the mind? Say my intellect. But there's also an intellect. So who's owning that intellect? And you don't know anything else. What else do you know? You only know body, mind, intellect. So then who? Who is this? Who says it is mine? Who is that? Isn't it true? We all say that. This is my body, mind, intellect. Who is that who says it is mine? So therefore we possess some unknown thing that is claiming these equipments as their own. What is that? We don't know what it is. It's just a corroboratory evidence. Remember that. These are all the corroboratory evidence. The first evidence he has given to us. He is like the lawyer, and we are like the judge. And he has provided the first evidence. Evidence number one. Everybody says, my body, mind, intellect. If it is mine, then who is the I? Who is owning them? Who is that? That's the first thing he wants to draw to our attention. What if we are using the wrong language? Varsha, very cute. What if we are using the wrong language? Okay, so how come every language is using the wrong language? Whether you say it in Hindi, Marathi, English, we're still saying that all the time. Everybody around the globe, whichever language you use, you're saying that. You know that? Say it in Sanskrit. Mama Shariram, my body. Say it in English, my body. Say it in Marathi, Maza Sharir. Say it in Hindi, Mera Sharir. Say it in French. And now somebody also say, no, I'm only saying everything.
Mon corps.
Say, moi, it's mine, right? How can it be? How can it be? Everywhere, everybody says the same thing. So this is the wrong language. Then the whole world can be accused of using. I don't know. Anyone knows German? Know any other language? How do you say it? Momita, how do you say it in Bengali? I'm assuming you're Bengali.
So I'm Priya actually, and in Priya, we say more deho.
Janki ji, language as in I didn't mean English or anything, but what I meant was conceptually only that, that what if this body is it? And every body has its own enlivening principle. And when I say my body, I mean Varsha body. And this body is saying it. I mean, like, I'm just
this
being the
body is
devil's
saying you
advocate
can't
here.
say. Okay, no, I understand what you're saying. And I'm answering the same. Language, I didn't mean in the sense of actual languages. I understood you meant just using a wrong terminology. But what I'm drawing to your attention is every language is using that terminology.
Right.
So how come? Okay, maybe in English we're doing it, maybe in Hindi we're doing it, but then every language all around the world is using the same wrong terminology? Maybe. But this is one of your corroboratory evidence that everybody all over the globe uses this kind of terminology in whichever language they use. It's something to think about. Just something to think about. You don't have to accept it based on this. No, so Omkar, he has turned it around and said, but we also say the self in me. No, Omkar, we never say the self in me. Think about it. The self in me is wrong terminology. We say the self, the self, the self, always the self. Or if we at all we say the self in me, we say the self in me is the same as the self in you. In other words, the self is all pervading. That's what we say. But never the self in me. Have you ever heard anyone say the self in me? No, don't say that. The self is always the self.
I am self.
I am the self.
If I am the self, if I am the self, it necessarily means I and the self are different, isn't it?
Now here is he has written about it. I don't know whether it is in this chapter or what. I am the self is very different from I am the body. Because I am the body, we'll study about that. There's a whole section on this, not here. The term I am the self means I is equal to self. It is very different from something like I am tall or I am short. I am tall or I am short is short or tall is not equal to me. It is my characteristic. I'm intelligent or not intelligent is not equal. So intelligent is not equal to. You understand the difference, right? Between equal to. Equal to means exactly the same. 2 is equal to 2. 2 is never equal to 3. Right? So equal to means exactly the same. So when I say I am the self, it means I and the self are the same. I is equal to self. I am hot or cold or intelligent or dumb or loving or hating. These are all my characteristics. They're not equal to. Actually, we're going to study that in depth later on. But let's not move away from.
So the other thing we also say is the ultimate aim of human life is the attainment of self. So obviously when there is an attainment, there is an attainer who's separate from the attainment. So that language kind of
is incorrect. That terminology, as you know, we have often mentioned that. I'm sure you've heard it a million times. That all this is wrong. Because in fact, even I've to gain knowledge is wrong. Remember, actually the right thing is we are removing ignorance. You're never attaining anything. You're never gaining anything in Vedanta. You're only removing the false, and what remains is the truth. I'm sure you've heard that a million times. So that's why, Vedanta has already thought these questions through. All that you are going through now, many sages in the past have thought this and responded and said, yeah, it can't be, right? So every question we come up with, there's already the answer written, and that's something quite fascinating. Because 10,000 years human brains have thought of it. So, they basically had the same objections that we have now. So this is a corroboratory evidence. Please remember, this is not given as proof, it's given as corroboratory evidence. Okay, so that's it for today.